experiences from Denmark. Oh, it's already the second one. At the first slide, it said Copenhagen City and Port Development, and Copenhagen City and Port developed new urban districts in Copenhagen, mainly out of former harbor industrial areas. And it is our ambition to create them as vibrant and attractive as the existing city in order to get people to want to live and work there, and also to let them intend to stay there. So to be a part of Copenhagen, which is a livable city. Copenhagen today is green, it's clean, green and blue, it's safe, it's interesting and eventful, and it is with a human scale and a relaxed urban life. It is a city with an old history, and these years it's been transformed with new urban districts with a high class. Our policy of architecture says it this way. Architecture and urban spaces should invite more people to stay longer and encourage them to walk more and provide more urban life for everybody. It also says it like this: new urban districts should reflect the Copenhagen character and the human scale of the city. And it has a statement like this, which I think could be a gift to the urban growth. City of Copenhagen wants to consider urban life before urban spaces, and urban spaces before buildings. Copenhagen is located in the northern part of Europe. That means that we don't have the pleasant climate you have here. We have a much shorter summer. On the other hand, we don't have the dramatic winters of Norway and Sweden either. We have something in between. And something in between means that we have more months in a year than you have here. And with that, I mean January to October, it's like here, but then comes November. And after that comes November, and November, and November. November is the worst time of year by us. It's depressingly wet and gray. But all the same, if you go to Copenhagen tomorrow, you will find out that people prefer to be outdoor. They prefer the outdoor cafes, just now with a blanket. If you go to parks and other green areas, you will see a lot of people, both children and grown-ups. They play ball, they use the playgrounds, etc. We are very fond of an outdoor, relaxed urban life, and that's part of the reason, I think, that we are known as the Latinos of Scandinavia. But it hasn't always been so. We have had a rather poor period, but in 1990, the national government, they decided three very important things, all to strengthen the competitiveness of Copenhagen. They decided to expand the airport. They decided to establish the link to Sweden, and they decided to build a new public high-class transport system in Copenhagen, now known as the metro system. And the metro system has changed the city. The yellow lines opened in 2002. The orange one and the blue one are under construction. We had huge discussions on that, but nobody remember the city before we had the metro. Before now we have much more mobility. Now we have a society that is connected to each other. We don't have a line yet to the south part of the harbor, but that has been decided to now. The character of the city, and now we are talking a small city compared to other cities we have heard about in this conference. The character of Copenhagen is rather low city with closed blocks, 5 to 6 stories, and then you have the historical buildings, spires and towers, technical plants with chimneys and windmills above that. Also, when we make new buildings, most of them are still in the same scale, and the human scale also means that we have a lot of garden lots, tiny little garden lots, also very close to the city center. I think you all know Copenhageners love their bikes. We use them, of course, for traffical purposes. More than 50% of all the daily traffic is by bike, but I also think it is part of this relaxed life. I think Copenhageners feel free when they are on their bike. And this relaxed urban life, now we also use the harbor for recreational purposes, as we do not have any commercial harbor any longer. Of course, this is an event, but we have several harbor baths, so you can have a swim in the harbor. And we like to be outdoor, not only to be relaxed as this. We do not only do picnics, we also have meetings outdoor, all part of this livable city. Demographics changes these years in Copenhagen. Today we are almost 600,000. 10 years ago we were 100,000 less, and in another 10 years we are supposed to be 700,000. But it's not only the number of citizens, it's also the average age. A few years ago the average age were higher than 50. Today it's less than 40, 37, something like that. It really means we have a young population, an active population that use the city. So it has been a journey. For almost 30 years' time we were an industrial city, we lost it all, was a pledged city, and now we have acquired new qualities as a livable city. And a big part of that is the new neighborhoods, and a lot of transformation is going on along the waterside, but also in other former industrial areas. I will go through 3 of them. The one is not at the waterfront, but I think that doesn't matter so much, and it's the 3 biggest ones: North Harbour, South Harbour, and the Ørestad. First generation of new neighborhoods in Copenhagen started in the mid-90s, and the biggest of those were Ørestad. Newtown decided to be located close to the city center and close to the airport. We did a competition and got a really strong structural plan as the result, and we have stuck to that since then. It has a potential, it has a site-specific idea, and that is that it is located at the edge of the city, but at the same time it's located at the edge of this great nature. Another idea is to make it multifunctional, to make it attractive, and not only with housing and offices, but also with public institutions, cultural buildings, etc. Things takes time, but you see population increases in Ørestad, number of businesses increases, and you see that we have a majority of young families and a majority of small children. The idea is that we have this strong overall structure plan, and then we have sections with different identity. The north part has almost been completed, and with this mixed use. Being site-specific in this area, which is a greenfield, you can say to be site-specific is that we have lots of room, lots of high sky, so we can have experimental architecture, and we do have buildings like these. It's a concert hall, it's students' homes, it's family homes, and it's a primary school and library, and it's also family homes. And I think this here we have used the architecture as a kickstart for Ørestad, because it's because of those buildings that people got conscious about Ørestad, both citizens in Copenhagen and also in the broader world. Another part of the Ørestad and another part of the site-specific thing is to be this very strong traffical infrastructure with the best intersection close to motorway and close to link to Sweden, the airport, the rest of Denmark and Europe. And I say it again, be ambitions on traffical infrastructure, because that's what connects cities and what connects districts of the city. And let the traffical infrastructure be visible in the city. And public life, urban life, help urban life and do it multifunctional. Oops. It takes time, be patient, have ice in your stomach, as we say in Denmark. This part of Ørestad is where developments are going on now. We got started before the financial crisis. We started out from our structural plan with the metro, with the connection to the huge green area, the common, and then it stopped. But then it was decided to give Ørestad, with public money, an arena and an ice rink. And at the same time, we said now, we reflected on the master plan. We did a new master plan, and we got this building structure, which is row houses and building structures like row houses, because we have this majority of young families in Ørestad, and we want them to stay. This is a good alternative to apartments with a balcony. So we are building a lot of this kind in Ørestad these days, and people love it. It's so easy to sell. It have a row house with a tiny little garden. And it is not only for private owned. What you see here, or the gray ones, are private owned, but these ones are social housing. And that's possible. Social housing is as clear as near as we come to affordable housing. It means that it is subsidized by the state and by the municipality for building costs, and now we have a legislation coming that also allows cities to subsidize for land cost. So how through this project, I'd say the conclusion is still have a strong overall structure plan and stick to it, be site specific, use the potentials of the area. Second generation, and now we go to the harbor. It's the South Harbour, beautiful area, all artificial, all the factories, industries gone. And then we had the discussion if it was worth it to transform this into an urban district. Beautiful areas with beautiful potentials, but also with some risks, because it's located rather isolated. So to realize this project, and to be strong enough to share the vision, but also to share the risk. The City of Copenhagen, the Ministry of Environment, the real estate of the state, and Copenhagen City and Port, we did a collaboration on this. And again, started out with a big vision of a canal village, where you have a main street in the middle, connecting all these peninsulas to each other, so you don't have to go out in the very hard traffical roads. And this canal village, where you have closed blocks, which are a tradition in Copenhagen, but surrounded by water, by canals, artificial canals, instead of streets. Then you have to be flexible so that you can take in new changes and new tendencies. It can be in society, economics, or whatever. Local politicians of Copenhagen now want Copenhagen to be as green as possible. We have always thought in the harbor you don't have trees, and harbor character is without trees, but now it has to be green. So we have opened up the blocks, and so that inner courtyards and promenades can merge together and that it can all be green. This is how it looks today, with the closed blocks, individual buildings, all surrounded by canals, and with neighborship with existing boat clubs. And then I'd say let it crash a little. Use contrast also to make your new neighborhoods eventful and vibrant. And the third generation, what we are doing today in Copenhagen, and the biggest of those projects are the North Harbour. We started out with this piece of land, 200 hectares, and surrounded by the open sea, with a lot of potentials, with a character, a bit Klondike, but rough, and with a container terminal in the middle of it all. It's the last commercial activity, harbor activity in Copenhagen. You cannot have that in the middle of a new district, so we are moving it further out. And it's the same thing with cruise ships. We have already built a new cruise ship terminal and have moved that out. The vision for this area, 80,000 people to work and live there, up to 3.5 million square meters of buildings, a urban district that shall use the potential of the water. We want to build on the water, a city for everybody, a dynamic and vibrant city, and with sustainable mobility. We did a competition. This is the result. This is the structure plan. The overall idea is to slice a piece of land up into smaller city quarters by digging new canals that connects all the water basins, and then connect the pieces of land with bridges, mainly for pedestrians and for bicycles. The idea is also to make synergy by having green and blue areas together, and we start in the south, and the further the north, the more and more green the area will be. So that's how it looked. Again, this rather low, dense city. Here we work with 3 to 6 stories only, very composed with small housing units, 50 to 100 apartments, but all with a mixed use, half apartments, half businesses and offices, etc. Promenades all along the water, but then again we try to really work with contrasts between dense and open, as you also see it here. We make the metro line, the construction of the metro line started a month ago, and it opened up in 2019. The first office building opened this summer. The next housing project will open up next summer, but almost have we done this to have the traffic infrastructure before the city. We make the sustainable way of moving around, metro and bicycles, visible in the city. A green bicycle route that follow the metro line, elevated metro line. This is the first city quarter as it looks today. One of the things we are working on when we talk about use the potentials, be site specific, is existing buildings. We reuse both silos and the smaller administration buildings, and make the architectural program from the existing buildings, again, to have it very composed with a lot of diversity and variety. Existing buildings like those will remain, for instance, in the main shopping street, because that is one of the things we are doing to kickstart the North Harbour. We have decided to start with the main shopping street in the first city quarter, not waiting till we have a critical mass. And nobody wants to buy a building right and build shops on the ground floor until they have this critical mass. So what we do is that we buy back all the ground floors. Then we can decide how to help shops and cafes, whatever, with a low rent from the start, and at the same time we can decide which shops and which activities we want in these ground floors, so that again we will have the variety we wish to have. Again, contrast, new and old. We can put add-on new buildings upon the old ones. And another thing, streets are not only for transport, they are meant as public spaces too. Using the water, using the canals for personal transport as well as recreational purposes. We do have make a variety of urban spaces. This one is one of the bigger ones, meant for events and surrounding some of the silos that has been rebuilt already. And thinking of the sentence from the architectural policy, urban life before before public spaces, before buildings, you can say urban life before public spaces, before buildings. That's how we think it all. Canals, digging the canals, really from the start, making access directly to the water, and so this is how it will turn on in a few years. Again, the silos, we want to let them remain. They have never been meant for purposes like office buildings or housing, has never been meant for heating, so it is a challenge, but these are the first office buildings. We have other silos, and both of these will be rebuilt into housing projects, will be a very clear landmark seen from the existing neighborhood. Okay. You weren't meant to see all these pictures. I thought somebody had taken them out for me. But I will end up with a few slides from the interior of one of these silos, just to show you how beautiful it can be. And of course, that's very special. I said we want Nordhavn to be a district for everybody. That means 20% of social housing. That means 20% of small apartments, 50 to 70 square meters, because we had that many single people in Copenhagen. But it also means that we can have apartments like these. And This is the North Harbour today, and we have reached a new phase because we have been working 7 years with this project as plans and ideas on paper and written and whatever, but now we have come to that phase where we are realizing it all. And my last slide, just to say, don't be afraid of contrast, don't be afraid of letting it all clash a little. And then I have some last point, which I haven't talked about till now, and that is, as I said, Copenhagen City and Port Development. We are a private developer, but we are owned by the public. We are owned by the City of Copenhagen and the state. We do all this transformation, we do all these developments because it's a part of the strengthening of Copenhagen, because there is a need for it. But there is also another purpose. These former industrial areas, the economical value of those are rather low. When we then use them for new districts, we raise the economical value, and all the benefit of that, all that money goes to the public, goes to the state and the city, and it has been decided on behalf that all that money is going to finance the metro system, and so it all connects together. Thank you.